If you were to take a look at the stats, AAA games very rarely fail. Most of the time, if a developer has the budget and resources for a game to be a AAA title, it's usually at least somewhat successful. Even stuff such as No Man's Sky, a tremendously disappointing game upon launch, didn't even fail. It still sold millions of copies and made a ton of money. Yes, the game is dead, but it didn't fail. A game known as BattleBorn, on the other hand, is a good example of a AAA game that did in fact fail. This game had the potential to be as popular as Overwatch or Paladins are today, but unfortunately, things didn't really work out for the developers. The process was going smoothly, but a few missteps along the way caused some major issues, which caused the game to die before it even began to get popular. Now, this situation isn't very similar to the ones that I've mentioned in previous videos, so we're going to cover what exactly happened in today's video, why BattleBorn failed. BattleBorn was unofficially announced on July 8th, 2014, and was being developed by Gearbox Studios and published by 2K Games. Now those names probably sound pretty familiar, and that's because they worked on some other really good games. These games were really popular and everyone loved them, and they are still being played today. Yes, I'm referring to the best Gearbox game ever made, Desert Bus VR. Oh, it's a true masterpiece. But for real, Gearbox was known for their very popular Borderlands series, and for working on the Brothers in Arms series as well, so people expected something good out of this upcoming release. The game was stated to have highly stylized visuals and first-person shooting, with Gearbox's industry-leading cooperative combat and an expansive collection of diverse heroes. Sounds like a pretty cool and unique game, right? Well, turns out another game was being developed at the same time, and it was known as Overwatch. Overwatch was marketed as a highly stylized team-based shooter set on Earth in the near future. Every match is an intense multiplayer showdown pitting a diverse cast of soldiers, mercenaries, scientists, adventurers, and oddities against each other in an epic globe-spanning conflict. When taking a look at these two things, they sound pretty similar honestly, and this would create a problem later on in the development process. The first official reveal trailer of BattleBorn was released on June 4th, 2015, and it was mediocre at best. The trailer kinda showed off the art style of the game, and the music choice was really cool, just like every other Gearbox trailer. But it did have some problems. There was so much going on in the trailer that it really didn't make sense, and nobody really knew what the game was about. While this scenario can be good if done in the right way, and can create a sense of mystery about the upcoming game, it could also be terrible if done incorrectly. With BattleBorn, this was the case, and the first trailer just made the game feel like some generic shooter that had no real purpose behind it. The second trailer wasn't any better, and it actually made the whole situation more confusing. This trailer showed something entirely different, and being released over a month later from the previous one, it still showed nothing about what the game was truly about. And to make the situation even worse, the graphics in both of these trailers were really bad, and they didn't appeal to many people. A few months after this release, the other game I mentioned, Overwatch, released their own trailers. These trailers, just like everything else Blizzard creates, were absolutely outstanding. The first teaser trailer was a 6-minute animated short film, and it was extremely high quality. It made sense, and more importantly, people were excited for what was to come with Overwatch. But at the time, there still wasn't much known about BattleBorn. Overwatch looked really cool, and it was obvious to see what they were trying to do. But BattleBorn was still a confusing mess that nobody really understood. Upon the release of the second trailer for Overwatch, which actually showed gameplay of the game, BattleBorn fell even further into the shadows. Overwatch now took the entire hype train, and BattleBorn was placed on the back burner by many gamers. While this was going on, the development of BattleBorn continued, and as time progressed, people began to kind of understand how the game was supposed to be structured. Because of all the confusion generated by the trailers, the marketing team began to release more information about the game to help people realize what the game was going to be. It was officially marketed as an FPS online battle arena with a variety of characters and playstyles. And this marketing strategy was a very bad decision for the company, for a variety of reasons. First of all, this game is being marketed on PC, but also on Xbox and PS4, which were giant markets. Creating the idea that this game is a MOBA actually made a lot of people lose interest. MOBAs are known for their hardcore, time-consuming, and high-strategy gameplay. They are known as being made for what people call hardcore gamers, and they're almost exclusively on PC. Calling the game a MOBA made more casual console players completely avoid the game, because not everybody is into MOBAs, it's a very specific category. Furthermore, the game was going to be sold for $60, and who would pay $60 for a MOBA when pretty much every other one of them are free? Problems continue as time progressed, and the game still had a major identity crisis. An open beta was launched in late March of 2016, and the game was not very well received. While many players did enjoy the gameplay, others didn't really understand what was going on. This game was marketed as a MOBA, but it played as if it were a very clunky hero shooter. The movement systems were extremely slow and boring, and the gunplay was decent. It seemed to take elements from MOBAs and elements from hero shooters and tape them together. Stuff didn't mix, and it just felt awkward to play. And like I said, nobody really knew what this game was supposed to be. How were people supposed to want to spend $60 on a game that they didn't understand? This was a big issue, and it would become much worse as time progressed. The game had a few more betas and was scheduled to launch in February of 2016. The main competition of this game, Overwatch, was supposed to be released on May 24th in the same year, so the race was on to see which one would gain popularity and become what it was promised to be. Since BattleBorn was supposed to be launched earlier, it seemed to have a head start compared to the other game, but things wouldn't go as planned. As BattleBorn launched, nobody really knew what to expect statistically. Was it going to be good? Was it going to be popular? Or was it going to die? Turns out, the third option was the one that ended up happening. The expected February release date got pushed back to May 3rd, 2016, just a few weeks before Overwatch's release date. As the new release for BattleBorn was nearing, the clock was ticking. With Gearbox knowing that they had some major competition, everything was rushed, and many last-minute advertisements and trailers were posted, and they were used to try to attract as much attention as possible before the launch of both games. When it came down to it, people would choose either one or the other. Because of how similar these games were to each other, nobody was going to pay full price for both of them when they can be looked at as having similar concepts. Even though the games were actually much different, the way that the BattleBorn marketing team made it seem, they were pretty close. BattleBorn launched on the rescheduled day, and Gearbox really didn't know what was going to happen with their game. This May 3rd date, however, was one of the worst possible times for the launch to occur. As the game launched, Overwatch had a free-to-play open play testing on the same weekend. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it ended up happening at the worst possible time for the BattleBorn team. Many of the players who would have purchased the game upon launch ended up going for the free playing of Overwatch instead, because they figured, why spend money on BattleBorn when Overwatch is pretty much the same thing, and it's free right now? While this may seem like it wouldn't make that much of a difference, it really did. Since Overwatch's official launch was just a few weeks later, BattleBorn needed to make a lasting impression before the launch of Overwatch, in order to win over the players who can only purchase one of the games. But since there was a free weekend during the launch time, the players who would have given BattleBorn a chance ended up playing Overwatch instead, and never even opened up the opportunity to enjoy BattleBorn. It was a big problem, and there was nothing that Gearbox or 2K could do about it. Even with all of this going on, the game launched with a pretty decent number of players. The player counts were tolerable, but for a AAA game that had been in development for a long time, it was nowhere near what people expected. It launched with a peak of around 12,000 players on Steam, and just 1 month later, its top monthly concurrent players went all the way down to 2,300. The game declined instantly from there, and by December of 2016, it had a monthly peak of 429 players. It lost over 90% of its original player base within the first 6 or 7 months of being out. So what caused it? The primary reason that this happened was of course from Overwatch. Overwatch was simply a much better game, and many people didn't even understand what BattleBorn was supposed to be because of the terrible marketing. But what caused the remaining players to leave? Obviously there were still a few thousand people who enjoyed the game, so why did they get off of it and stop playing? And it seems as if this was caused by some other issues with the game itself. Straight from the launch, the game only had 3 game modes and a total of 6 fairly average maps. There was a small amount of content, and more would be added in small future updates, but there wasn't enough content to keep people playing. Matchmaking times were insane, and before the player count even died off, it would take upwards of 10 minutes to be placed into a match. And of course, as the game died down, the wait times got even longer. At one point, some players reported waiting over 30 minutes to get into a single match. This, combined with the fact that there wasn't much to do, plus the insane identity crisis that the game was having, caused it to die. The $60 price tag on the game, along with the release of the much better and more polished Overwatch, prevented people from buying it. and a lack of content caused the people who did purchase it to stop playing. The game itself isn't a bad game, in fact it's rather enjoyable. As updates came over time, the gameplay got much better and became quite a bit of fun. But by the time that this happened, it was already too late. In September of 2017, the developers realized that it was a lost cause. They announced that after an upcoming update, development would be ceased on the game. The very few remaining players had nothing left to expect, which caused them to leave. As of today, there are always less than 100 active players at any given time, and the game has been put into the books as one of the biggest AAA fails in gaming history. Well guys, that is going to be it for today's video, so I hope you guys enjoyed. What are your thoughts on BattleBorn, and what are your thoughts on this video? Please let me know in the comments below. As you guys have probably heard 100 times, my favorite part about these videos is hearing what you guys have to think, so constructive criticism or love or hate or whatever, just let me know in the comments. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. Be sure to check out my Twitter, my Discord, and my Patreon, all of which are linked below. I will see you guys next time, and peace. Before I end this video, I just have one more quick little announcement. My second channel, called Business Origins, is coming back, and I'm going to actually start uploading consistently on it. I've had this channel for a while, but I've really never done anything with it, and I feel like it's time that I finally do what I've wanted to do with it. With this channel, I post videos about the rise and fall of certain businesses, so example, how Starbucks started, how Chick-fil-A started, how Subway started, and I know that sounds really weird, it's like a really specific type of content, but that's something that I've really been into my whole life, so I figured I'd make some videos on it. If you guys are into that, feel free to check it out. I will put a link in the description below, because uploads will be put on that channel quite often as soon as I get rolling with it. Anyways guys, feel free to check that out. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time, and peace.